All right, ready to dive into some real mysteries this time. We're talking Rosicrucians, folks, and let me tell you, this deep dive is gonna be a wild ride. We're going through your Wikipedia suggestions today, and let's just say this topic is, well, it's a lot. Secret societies, hidden knowledge, whispers of, well, we'll get to all that, but hey, that's why we're here, right? To unpack it all.
It's definitely a topic that captures the imagination, that's for sure. And what makes the Rosicrucians so interesting, at least to me, is when and where they pop up in history. We're talking about the 1600s, right at the dawn of what we now call the scientific revolution.
So, like, they were straddling this line between, like, the old world with its emphasis on religion and tradition and this new world of science that was challenging everything.
Exactly. And instead of picking a side, they seemed to want it both ways. They were trying to build a bridge between science and spirituality, arguing that you didn't have to choose one over the other.
It's like they saw where things were headed, science pulling away from religion, and thought, hold on, what if we could find a way to bring them together?
Yeah, and they weren't shy about their ambitions either. They called for a general reformation of society.
Now, when I hear Reformation, I immediately think Martin Luther, church doors, the whole shebang. Are we talking about a religious revolution here?
Not exactly. For the Rosicrucians, this general reformation wasn't about starting a new church or challenging religious dogma. It was more about a societal reboot, a complete overhaul of how people thought about knowledge, power, even the purpose of life itself.
Okay, now we're talking. So what? They wanted to create this utopia where science and spirituality were best buddies, working together to create a better world.
It was a pretty radical vision, especially for the time. They believed that knowledge, especially knowledge about nature and the universe, what we call science today, wasn't just about cold, hardened facts. It was a pathway to spiritual enlightenment.
So for them, studying the human body wasn't just about anatomy and physiology, it was about understanding the divine spark within. Alchemy wasn't just about turning lead into gold, it was about transforming the self.
Exactly. They believed that by unlocking the secrets of nature, you could unlock the secrets of the soul. They wanted to use knowledge to heal, to empower, to uplift humanity. But there's a bit of a twist in this story, a big one, actually. The Rosicrucians everyone was buzzing about in the early 1600s. Well, there's a good chance they might not have existed.
Wait, hold on, back up a minute. You're saying the Rosicrucians, these mysterious figures that have inspired countless books and secret societies, might have been, what, a figment of someone's imagination?
Well, not a figment exactly, more like
Yeah.
a very carefully constructed literary persona.
You're messing with me, right? Okay, let's break this down. We're talking about the Rosicrucians, right? And their legendary founder, Christian Rosenkreutz, the guy who's like the poster child for Rosicrucianism.
The very same. And it seems very likely that Mr. Rosenkreutz was not a real person.
So, no Christian Rosenkreutz, but we have all these manifestos, the Fama Fraternitatis, the Confessio Fraternitatis, and of course, who could forget the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz attributed to him and circulating all over Europe? Who wrote those?
That's the million-dollar question. It's a mystery that scholars are still debating, but most believe it was a group of intellectuals in Tübingen, Germany, who were using Rosenkreutz as, well, a kind of mouthpiece for their ideas.
So they created this fictional character, this Christian Rosenkreutz, to spread their message, kind of like a 17th century pen name.
Exactly. It was a way to put forth some pretty radical ideas about reforming society, about the power of knowledge, without attracting too much unwanted attention from the authorities.
Yeah.
Remember, this was a time when challenging the status quo could land you in hot water.
Yeah, no kidding. You didn't want to be on the wrong side of the church or the state back then. So they created this imaginary friend to be the face of their movement, to get people talking, to shake things up a bit.
Exactly. And it worked. Those manifestos, even though they were attributed to a fictional character, they set people talking, debating, arguing. They planted a seed. And that seed, the idea of Rosicrucianism, is started to take root.
It's amazing how a story, even a fictional one, can have such a powerful impact. But if there wasn't an actual Rosicrucian organization in the early 1600s, how did those ideas spread? Who kept that flame alive?
It's like they went viral before going viral was even a thing. But now we're stepping out of the 1600s and into a whole new era for the Rosicrucians, right? No more imaginary friends. We're talking actual organizations, rituals, maybe even a secret handshake or two.
Well, about those secret handshakes, I can't make any promises, but yeah, things definitely shift as we move into the 18th century. This is where we start to see groups openly calling themselves Rosicrucians with initiations, hierarchies, the whole shebang. One of the most interesting, at least from a historical perspective, is the Order of the Golden and Rosy Cross.
Okay, the Order of the Golden and Rosy Cross. It even sounds mysterious. Tell me more. When and where did this group pop up, and what were they all about? They emerged in Germany in the mid-1700s, and they weren't just some fringe group meeting in secret. They actually gained some serious influence, even having the ear of some pretty high-ranking officials in the Prussian court.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Whispering alchemical secrets in the halls of power. I like it. But seriously, if they had that kind of clout, what did they do with it? What were their goals?
They were big on alchemy, but not just the turning lead into gold kind of alchemy, though I'm sure they wouldn't have said no to that. For them, alchemy was as much about inner transformation as it was about any external material change.
So it was like the original self-help movement.
Yeah,
Transform your leaden consciousness into spiritual gold.
you could say that. They saw alchemy as a metaphor for the spiritual journey, the process of purifying and perfecting the soul. They were also interested in medicine and using their knowledge to heal the body as well as the soul.
It's like they were trying to find that balance, that harmony between the physical and the spiritual that the early Rosicrucian manifestos talked about. But you said they had the ear of powerful people. What happened? Did they manage to bring about a golden age?
Well, as with most things in history, it's a bit more complicated than that. While they did have a moment in the sun, their influence eventually waned. The Age of Enlightenment, with its emphasis on reason and scientific method, kind of shifted the tides.
So it's like the Rosicrucians were swimming against the current. Mysticism and secret knowledge weren't as popular as they used to be.
Something like that. But it wasn't the end of the Rosicrucians, not by a long shot. Those ideas about the harmony of science and spirituality, about the power of knowledge, they went underground for a while, but they were about to resurface in a big way.
And I'm guessing this resurgence has something to do with the Victorians and their love of all things occult and mysterious.
Ding, 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 you got it. The Victorian era, with its fascination with spiritualism, secret societies, and anything that hinted at hidden knowledge, well, it was the perfect breeding ground for a Rosicrucian revival.
It's like the Rosicrucians were tailor-made for the Victorian era. All that talk of ancient wisdom, secret rituals, it must have been a perfect fit.
Absolutely. Plus, by the 19th century, those Rosicrucian texts that were once rare and circulated in secret, they were being printed and more widely read. So their ideas, once confined to a select few, were suddenly accessible to a much wider audience.
It's like the Rosicrucians finally got their marketing plan together. But with this resurgence, we also start to see even more diversity within the Rosicrucian movement, right? Our research mentions groups like the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, even some whispers of groups dabbling in, shall we say, darker arts. How do we make sense of all these different groups claiming the Rosicrucian mantle?
That's an important point. There's no one-size-fits-all Rosicrucianism, especially in these later periods. It's more like a family tree, with those early Rosicrucian texts and ideas as the roots, and then all these different groups branching out, each with their own interpretations and practices.
So different branches, but still connected to those same core ideas.
Exactly. Take the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, or SRAA, for example. They were founded in England in 1865, and they were very much a scholarly bunch, more interested in studying ancient texts and symbolism than in any kind of practical magic. They had strong ties to Freemasonry, but that's a whole other deep dive.
One mystery at a time. So the SRIA, they were all about hitting the books, trying to unlock the secrets of the universe through study and contemplation.
Exactly. Then you have groups like their Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, founded a few decades later. They were more hands-on, incorporating ceremonial magic, Kabbalah, tarot. They were interested in putting those Rosicrucian ideas into practice, in exploring the connections between the spiritual and material worlds through ritual and experience.
Okay, so we've got our bookish Rosicrucians, our more hands-on magical Rosicrucians. It's a lot to keep track of. But before we go any further down this rabbit hole, is there any way to tie all these threads together? What makes all these groups, despite their differences, distinctly Rosicrucian?
Even with all the variations, certain themes run through nearly all Rosicrucian expressions: the pursuit of knowledge, the desire to harmonize science and spirituality, and the belief in the potential for human transformation.
It's less about a specific set of beliefs or practices then, and more about a shared aspiration, a quest for something more.
Exactly. Some groups might emphasize structured teachings and initiations, while others encourage personal exploration and intuition, what they call gnosis. You even have groups like the Lectorium Rosicrucianum, which blends Rosicrucian ideas with Gnosticism.
So many paths, so many interpretations. It's amazing how those whispers of a general reformation from those early Rosicrucian manifestos have echoed through the centuries, inspiring so many different expressions.
And that's what makes the Rosicrucians so fascinating. They're not just a historical footnote. They represent this enduring human desire to understand ourselves and the universe, to find meaning and purpose, to reach for something more.
This deep dive has been a journey and a half, really. We started with those mysterious Rosicrucian manifestos, met their imaginary friend, founder, and somehow ended up exploring all these real-life Rosicrucian groups, each with its own flavor. Talk about a wild ride through history.
And like any good journey, the real treasure is often the journey itself, wouldn't you say? Exploring those ideas, those connections, that's what makes it so fascinating.
You hit the nail on the head. But for our listener, for someone just dipping their toes into the Rosicrucian waters, what's the takeaway? What's this all about? Is it all secret handshakes and decoding ancient texts, or is there something more?
It's about tapping into that same spirit of curiosity and exploration that drove those early Rosicrucians. It's about understanding that knowledge, whether it's scientific or spiritual, has this incredible power to change us, to change the world.
So it's less about finding all the answers and more about the never-ending search itself.
Exactly. And that's why we still see such a diverse range of Rosicrucian groups today. Some, like AMMRC, have very structured teachings and initiations, a clear path to follow.
Right, we talked about AMRC earlier. They're one of the larger and more well-known Rosicrucian organizations around today, right?
Exactly. But then you have other groups that are much more about personal exploration, about trusting your own intuition, following your own path to enlightenment, what they sometimes call gnosis.
So many different approaches, but all united by those core Rosicrucian themes. It's pretty amazing how those whispers of a general reformation, those ideas from those early manifestos, are still resonating centuries later.
And that's what makes the Rosicrucians so relevant, even today. They remind us that the search for knowledge, for meaning, for transformation, well, that's a journey that never really ends.
What a ride this has been. Decoding those early Rosicrucian manifestos, diving into the world of secret societies, exploring the magical and mystical. Who knew the Rosicrucians could be so captivating?
It's a testament to the power of ideas, isn't it? How those ideas, even centuries later, can still spark our curiosity, challenge our assumptions, and inspire us to look at the world in new ways.
And on that note, I'll leave our listeners with this. If the Rosicrucians were writing a manifesto for today, for the 21st century, what would it say? What wisdom would they offer? What challenges would they urge us to confront? Something to think about. Until next time, keep asking those questions, keep seeking those answers, and keep diving deep.
Thank you for listening. If you love history, don't forget to subscribe to History with Bree and Peter. Join us for more fascinating stories from the past. Hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode.